Join Kevin Hart as he dives into the minds of some of the world's funniest comedians. This is Comedy Goldmines with Kevin Hart.
Welcome, world. Welcome to an all-new episode of Comedy Goldmines, where we do what? Where we get inside the minds of brilliant comedians, and oh my God, what amazing minds they are. And today's mind will be no different. Today's mind is a mind that I've known and I've been a fan of for so long because they've been in the game so long. And not only have they been in the game, but they've maintained such a nice level of success. And they seem to be a comics comic. It's a comic that comics love. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Margaret Cho. She's on Comedy Goldmines. Hey, Margaret.
Hi.
How are you?
That's nice.
You said that was nice, my introduction?
I think that's nice. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
nice. It's
Oh,
good
really
to be a
good.
comics. It's good to be a comics comic.
That's what you want to be.
Yeah.
As a comic, you want to be a comics comic. If you have the opportunity to be embraced by other comedians and respected by other people in the craft, it really does give you a good feeling just about what you're doing. It's one of acceptance. It's a good one.
Well, also comics are really hard to make laugh.
Absolutely.
You know, they almost never laugh. Or like they'll just say, "Oh, that's funny."
Yeah.
They just don't
Yeah.
really laugh.
Yeah, you don't get the you get the oh, that was good.
Yeah,
That's good.
there's like a nod of acknowledgement, but there's very rarely. I mean, sometimes I will actually really laugh at. It depends on how. I usually laugh at things that are really stupid, like just really dumb things that'll make me laugh.
What comic makes you laugh? Who makes you laugh?
Oh gosh, you know who I used to love is Buddy Hackett.
Ah,
You know,
okay.
like something like those really old, like I like a Groucho Marx movie, like a really, it's not dumb, but it's like physical, or some kind of like that kind of thing, or like Peter Sellers was
Yeah.
always very entertaining.
Yeah, you like physical comedy, silly, not crazy, but things that are in the like. Let me give a good example. Like when you say Buddy Sellers, what's another example?
Oh, like a Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Like they actually, I find, are really fascinating because it's so violent.
The relationship.
Their relationship is so violent, and there's never really any kind of understanding of who these people are, but they're just beating each other up, and it's so weird because they don't even look alike, but I'm assuming they're related.
Yes, they're brothers. The Three
Yes.
Stooges. Yeah. And
Yes.
the beauty of that relationship is, like you said, is one of violence, but also it's one where they're always on a mission. They're always
Right.
on a mission to get something done. And the beauty of the mission is that three guys that aren't considered to be the smartest are led by a guy who thinks he's the smartest, and the other guys battle to be smarter. It's like it's that thing over and over
Right.
again. I'm a fan. I've always been a fan though of the physical comedy. So
Yeah.
that's never going to miss with me. Margaret, how long have you actually been in the game of comedy? How long have you been doing it?
I've been doing stand-up comedy since 1984, so that's quite a long time.
That's a very long time.
It's about 36 years.
Why comedy? Why did you end up choosing comedy?
I really love the art form. I mean, I grew up watching Three Stooges. I grew up watching SNL. Also, SCTV actually is probably more influential, which I love. Eugene Levy, and of course, Schitt's Creek is sort of like the eventual kind of evolution of that. But you know, that kind of comedy. Also, Kids in the Hall made a huge impact on me a little bit later.
Huge.
But I loved Joan Rivers as a comedian, and I really idolized her, and watching her on television made me realize, like, oh, I realized that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then I didn't really even wait till I grew up because I was pretty young when I started, but I just loved the art form of it, and I loved comedy. I loved the control that comedians had over an audience, and you know, to me, it's just such a very simple art form, but it's also very complicated because you're creating these worlds out of your words, and I think that's very powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, you're painting pictures for the audience to not only see, understand and relate to, but I guess you can say just to get a real crash course to your life, through laughs. That's what I love the most about it. It's basically my form of expression, but more importantly, my way of telling you who I am, what I'm going through, and what my point of view on certain things are. It's therapy for me. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic, to get on stage and to talk about some things that are dark, some things that are not. And the thing that you look for in return is the laugh, and that acts as, that's the win. That's the bonus. It's my feel good. When you say like you've been doing it and you now look back at the beginning part of your career, was there ever a part or point in comedy where you were like, you know what, maybe this isn't going to be it. Maybe this isn't going to work.
No, no. You know what? I've never ever got to that point. Fortunately, I'd always had a pretty good relationship business-wise to it. I had nothing else going on in my life other than stand-up comedy. I couldn't be an actor necessarily. I am now, but not when I was younger. There was never Asian roles in anything, so you could never get a job as an actor. So fortunately, I was still able to be a comedian. And for whatever reason, like there was always comedy work. There was always a job. Like I could never do anything else either. I always got fired at other jobs. I was terrible at everything else. So I was able to be a comic because also nobody wanted to be a comic. It was weird. Now there's a lot more comedians.
A lot.
In the 80s, like nobody wanted to be a comedian. So you got a sort of job security because everybody wanted to go out and see comedy. Also, there was like, if you were not opposed to hosting like rock shows, and I also like went on tour with like rock bands and did big like rock venues later, that's something that was very lucrative to do because they just always needed a host to like keep it together, or when they were like putting instruments, changing the setups for the band on stage, you could go on in between. They always needed somebody to do that. And I was there for that.
It's crazy that you say that when you said something that's very interesting. Like there's always a job, right? For a comic. There's always a way to get revenue from the craft. And it's about, I guess you could say, being ambitious and finding that thing. And you talk about the world of touring and you going with rock and roll bands. This is something that is not traditional, but yet common. Like when you say keeping a crowd together, keeping them in tune and prepared just, for the show and the show to come. Normally, they put comedians in any environment because there's this assumption that a comedian, no matter what, a comedian can keep a crowd's attention. And you going on tour with rock and roll bands, I find to be just super dope because it's not what you would expect. It's not what you would expect to hear a comedian do. And that doesn't stop like you from doing other things. That just acts as one tier. So it can be the tour for the rock and roll bands, and then over here at your comedy clubs and your late night spots, etc. Where were you at when you started? Where were you living at?
I was in San Francisco, which was a great place to start as a stand-up comedian.
Great comedy town.
It's a great comedy town. And there was a lot of morning radio that supported stand-up comedians, too. So you would see, like, people like Bobby Slayton kind of up and early in the morning and going on these radio shows. And they would be, like, hyping their shows for the night. So you had... just a whole industry, a sort of minor industry around comedy with radio. So radio was pretty influential in promoting comedians. There were sometimes comedians who would get like these radio shows and be playing music and also talking about the gigs that they were doing. And so I kind of got involved in that world, which was really great. And getting to see all of these comedians in a very early stage, people like Paula Poundstone and Ellen DeGeneres or Bobcat Goldthwait or Dana Carvey, that was amazing.
Such a great class.
Yeah.
Such a great class to come
Great.
up in. Who acted as like your crew? Did you have a comedy clique that you were rolling with in the early stages?
The people that I came up with, so my generation is like Patton Oswalt. Patton Oswalt and Brad Posehn and Blaine Capatch were three comics. They lived a block away from me. And then we all lived across from a club called the Holy City Zoo, which was a small stand-up comedy club that was secretly owned by Robin Williams. And he used to be the doorman there in the 70s. And then he bought the club and would come there and do sets. And all of the comics would gather there after their shows late at night. And usually we all sort of lived near the place. So it was great because we would just all meet up. And this is before anybody was married or had kids. And, comics were not hooking up with anybody. We're just like hanging out with each other, but laughing. And so we would come together. Robin Williams would come and do a set. And, it was just really like comics together. And, we were just having a good time. So it was a very special time to be a young comedian in the early 90s in San Francisco.
When you say that, it makes me think about the days in New York, because hanging out is what the best part of being a comedian is. And like you said, it's not about hooking up and doing all the crazy shit. It's really about the laugh.
Yeah.
And it's about the conversation around the laugh. And when you find yourself in an environment with comedians that love comedy and support other comedians, you truly are in a place of happy. I remember in New York, our place was the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
We would literally go up and we would finish at the Comedy Cellar and sit from 12 to 3:30 a.m. at a table and just talking and trashing one another or talking about each other's sets. But it was exactly what you just said. It was just hanging out. And I feel like in comedy, now I'm a little removed from it. I haven't been back to to go to the spots to where I once frequented and hung out. But I wonder if there is a presence of that with the younger generation. Like if they still embrace that side of the craft.
I hope so. I think so. I think that there is that, although nowadays there's so many different ways to be a comedian. There's a lot of people who are doing clubs that never really did like comedy shows per se. They were like doing stuff on the internet. Like they're like TikTok comics or they're YouTube comics or Instagram comics, that they have a huge following that has nothing to do with the way that we started in stand-up comedy. So that's a very different thing as well, which I think is really interesting. So there's a lot of different ways to be a comedian now, and I think there's a part of the industry that embraces that as well.
Well, look, it's a time for new. Things have to change. They have to be amplified. So the approach to the craft is different. When you talk about the internet, you talk about social media, you'll find that the world of skits and sketches act now as a segue to the stage for some, right? Like a lot of the viral talent that has blossomed and turned into younger, funny, ambitious comics, they went the reverse way. They said, all right, I'm going to go here, get the attention, and then I'm going to go learn this craft, but I'm able to bring my following from over here, and that following comes and support me. And, as I get some time and some reps, of course they get better, they get stronger. But I think it's really interesting that they're able to build an audience first and then go to the craft. Whereas before it was about getting the craft down, understanding it, and then after that trying to go out and grab your audience. So it's like a little reverse. Yeah. But I think it's interesting. I'm here for it. I think talent is talent, and the name of the game is getting seen, right? Is getting yourself in a position to get seen. I think that's what they're doing. Yeah. What's your take on it? Like, do you have a take on how you feel comedy is changing today, just within the approach from this generation?
I love it. I think it's so interesting, and I get really excited about it. To me, it's just so different and new, and I'm actually quite into TikTok. Like, that's such a weird thing because I feel like it's so sophisticated what people are able to do in just 15 seconds.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, and I'm super
Do you
impressed
understand
by.
it?
Yeah,
Do you
I
understand it? You
absolutely
get it?
understand. I get it and I love it. And I love to see how that translates into live performance. And I'd love to see what people are doing with it. So it's to me really exciting. I know that a lot of stand-up comics really are just I think we're all kind of like amazed at how things have changed so much that we're embracing so much. I think stand-up comics also were like there was always like the real sort of negative attitude towards variety acts, like people who were like magicians or
Yes.
jugglers or whatever.
Yes.
You were sort of like always going like, oh, I don't know, or like a
Yes.
hypnotist.
Yes.
It always was like, well, that's not real, but it's so. I think of all that as being very legitimate, and sort of looking back to the old days of burlesque and how all of those variety acts really applied to the same stage as comedians, and so I think it's cool.
Have you had the opportunity to take on the mentor role to any degree? Like being a poised and
Yeah.
polished comic. Do you find younger women that are new to the stage asking for advice
Yes.
and asking for information? And have you
Mhm.
put yourself in a position to give give some
Oh,
gems?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to. I mean, that's really the most important part of comedy is to influence a younger generation. And I'm lucky enough that that's probably my greatest achievement is inspiring a younger generation of Asian American women
Absolutely.
to be comedians, people like Ali Wong and
Yes.
Aquafina. And, really the list goes on and on of all of these amazing people who are stand-up comics who are doing their work because they saw me doing oh, I could do this too. So that's a great thing. So I'm really honored by that. But that's a very important part of stand-up comedy is to mentor.
Well, yeah, I mean, you are a pioneer. Like
Yeah.
you when you talk about Asian women and the understanding that hey, anything is possible. You need visions. You need
Hmm.
to see and understand that oh, it can happen. You definitely are that. So when you talk
Yeah.
about now the growth, like there's a massive growth in the opportunities for Asians in entertainment in general, right? And to be seen
Right.
in this whole fight for equality and equal, not just treatment but opportunity, right?
Hmm.
It's a real thing. It's a real conversation, and you definitely can see the growth in it. So I think it's
Yeah.
super dope that you say, okay, well, we went back there, we mentor, we make sure that we inform. That's the most
Mhm.
important thing about what we do. Is
Yeah.
I feel yes, finding success for ourselves, but making sure that we're opening up the doors for the people after us to kick through and possibly find other doors to open up as well. The
Yes.
craft has to continue to expand and grow.
Absolutely. That's the most important part.
And you've always been like a outspoken person as well.
Hmm.
I love that you have a voice and you're not afraid to use your voice, right? And
Hmm.
the world of politics to you is one that's important. When did you feel the need to say, okay, well, in my platform now that I have with my success, there's also things that I feel important that I need to talk about and speak on. When did you understand that you wanted to make that transition as well?
Well, that was from the beginning because when I was working out and doing stand-up comedy in the 80s and 90s, I was doing a lot of like charity work and benefit for AIDS and people with HIV, those kinds of venues and those kinds of like political events were incredibly important. So coming out of the gay community, being gay, this was like a major part of my entire life. So it's activism has always been part of it. Gayness has always been part of it, and the intersectionality of being a person of color and being gay.
I love it. I love it. And now, what do you feel about the tone? I mean, as a comic and addressing the climate today, and just the side of people just wanting to be heard and understood, and in the world of respect. That's what I would say it boils down to, respecting one another. And now, it's not necessarily just about sensitivity. I think it's about feelings. And I think it's about being aware of feelings and being mindful of things that hurt. In comedy, do you feel like this has put a hamper or a dent in the craft because of, the tone and the heightened level of, well, you can say and can't say? How do you feel about it now?
I think it's really important that you have a lot of skill in approaching subjects now. That's probably the most important aspect. Like if you can deliver a message that's really nuanced, then it's a very important thing to be able to do. I think like cancel culture and all those things require us as comedians to be more skilled in our message, and it just have to be much more finessed. Like if you look back at comedians, like I look to people like Rudy Ray Moore, who was so. I was actually in a movie with Rudy Ray Moore, which is like one of my most prized, exciting achievements. But I think in the last movie that he did before he died,
Wow.
and so you look at comedians like that, or Red Fox, or LaWanda Page, and Joan Rivers and Buddy Hackett, and that whole generation of comedians were just so. They could really get away with anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
and part of it was the culture, but part of it was a little bit of finesse. And I think it's about a stylistic choice and about being very conscious about the message being taken apart. So you have to be really tricky with it. It's quite like, juggling magic. It's almost being like a variety act as well. You've got to really kind of like work it out in a lot of different ways, but it's tough.
Who do you think today has that? Who do you think has the skillful approach that you're talking about now?
Oh, you know who's really good is Wanda Sykes.
I love Wanda.
She's really skillful at sort of pulling things and dragging things into an area, an arena of nuance and effectiveness. I think somebody like Joel Kim Booster, he's really incredible at it. There's a lot of people. Robin Tran is probably my favorite. Robin Tran is a really amazing trans woman comedian. She's a Vietnamese American. She's one of my favorites, and she's just so good at pulling things apart. And she says things you cannot believe that she can get away with. But
it's the delivery.
So
The
finessed.
delivery. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so finessed, and it's just like, oh, I really have a lot of admiration for people that can really kind of walk. It's quite a minefield now.
I'm gonna steal that word. I like the word finesse.
Yeah.
And I like the way you use it because it's true. I think there is today. You definitely have to. You just got to make sure that you're really stepping into your space of skill within comedy. And what I mean by that is, it's not just about the joke now. It's also about the delivery of the joke. But more importantly, it's the takeaway. What do I want you to take away from the joke? What do I want you to take away from the premise? And now you're vetting jokes out. You're making sure that they're checking these boxes, and to me, I kind of put my jokes in tiers, right? So it's like when you're telling the joke, I normally give about 3 hits within the joke because mine's are more stories. So how do I have it like a drum almost, like to doom, and create a nice rhythm to it? But it's exactly what you're saying, and I like that. I like the approach that you're speaking of because it's one that I think comics that listen to this podcast and people that listen to the podcast can definitely, you can get a great understanding, a more clear understanding based off your description just now. Let's go back to the beginning for a second, Margaret. When did you realize that you were taking off? When did you know, oh shit, this is bigger for me. My opportunities are now much greater than what they once were. Like this stardom thing is getting real. It's here.
I don't know. I mean, it's weird because it's like it was such a weird time to start being a comedian, and then, I was still a kid really in the 80s. Maybe like when I started doing MTV. Do you remember MTV's Half Hour Comedy Hour with like Mario Joyner?
Yes.
So I did that a couple of times, and then I started to think like, oh, I'm actually like getting somewhere. So I would like be hanging out with like Janine Garofalo and Colin Quinn, and I thought I was all that. Like, I thought I was like in this sort of 90s era of comedians who were actually doing different things, and we all idolized David Cross and Bob Odenkirk, and they were doing Mr. Show, and this kind of like new kind of comedy that was super surreal and super weird. and getting to be a witness to that, then I guess it was just the people that we were around that, seeing like other comics doing stuff and thinking, oh, I'm actually in this group of people, or that rise of like quote unquote alternative comedy where it was very much storytelling. And there was a couple of venues that we would go to where they didn't have a microphone, and we just thought it was so cool. It's so stupid. It's so stupid, but it's just like, we just thought it was cool. We didn't have a microphone. We had like everybody sitting on the floor, and we had like standing on a rug. It was very interesting.
I think that is cool though.
It's cool.
I like it. You saying that we thought it was so cool. I like it.
I think it's cool.
I like the intimacy of it. That's what I like when you do that. You take away from the microphone, and you got a little small crowd with you. That's just it's a different world. That's a comfort spot for me. I love that.
Yes.
Very, very comfortable for me. Let's talk about today. What are you doing today? What's new? Are you touring? Are you on the road, off the road?
Both, a little bit, a little bit. It's weird because like during the last year of the pandemic, I did a lot of streaming shows, which I thought was actually really cool. And
define that. Like,
really
who are you doing streaming shows
like
for?
doing shows on Zoom, doing things like on different kinds of streaming platforms, doing things on Instagram Live.
Wow.
I actually really loved it. There was a kind of real focus you have to put into those kinds of performances. So I got sort of really good at that, and I really enjoyed doing shows kind of just from my house. And then I was out on the road. I did some movie stuff. I did a great big gay movie for Joel Kim Booster and Bowen Yang.
I love it. Congrats.
It was really fun. It's called Fire Island. It's a beautiful gay romance movie that'll be out next summer.
Okay.
And so that was really cool. And I'm just doing more acting stuff. So I'm in like there's so many Asian shows now. So I get to be like a guest star in every Asian show. So I'm like the Joan Collins of every Asian, like the Diane Carroll of every show. Special guest Jane Wyatt. Like, it's a very good feeling to be able to be the special guest star in every Asian show. So I got to do like Aquafina's show.
Yes.
And, I did Doogie Howser's like the Hawaiian cousin, Doogie Kamehameha in Hawaii, which is very cool. So that to me is like a really exciting part of the new renaissance of Asian American entertainment, to be a part of it.
Well, the beauty, you just said something so dope. You said there's so many Asian shows now.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. Like, you once again, you're seeing the growth. You're seeing the progression. And that's important. I think that's extremely important because there's room for all of us.
Yeah.
There's enough success for all of us, and there is no reason why we all shouldn't get the same opportunities, right? And right now, I love that you're so happy about not only being there from the beginning, but now where you are saying, "Oh my God, this is so amazing," because I remember when there weren't.
Yeah.
I remember when, like, you're a real vision of, no, before we didn't have that.
Yeah.
There weren't any Asian comedians. There weren't any, and now you see where it is now. I mean, that's got to be pretty dope for you to see and feel.
So great. I mean, and it's, to me, it's job security. It's just so that I could be everybody's like mom or grandma, which is like the best. It's the best to be a guest star. It's so fun to be a guest star.
I love it.
So, yeah.
When you say now, we talked about the beginning stages of your career. We talked about when you felt that the success was coming. We talked about now the things that you're doing, and that was about acting. So within stand up now, after pandemic, and things are moving. I think we're slowly getting back to the place of normal, and hopefully soon will be a full functioning world that is. That has what this catastrophic moment was in our past, right? The live stage, is that something that you're going back to?
Yes. So I just did shows this past weekend. I've been doing like shows at clubs every weekend, which is really gratifying. And I think you have a renewed sense of purpose and commitment to it, because like we realize it's something that can be taken away easily. And so I really have a renewed fervor for it. Like I really love it. In a way that I haven't appreciated in quite some time. So this is a great thing, you know, and I feel like all comedians are really energized to go back out there. So it's great. I'm on the road a lot more and I'm planning to do a lot more in the coming year. And so that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I kind of feel like we took for granted what we had. Right? Like the relationship from us to live audience is one that we kind of just, you know, we assumed would forever be there, right? We're the one craft that we feel we control.
Yes.
Nobody can take comedy from us as ours. We
Right.
decide when we want to do it. We decide when we don't want to do it. And
Yes.
when this happened, you know, this was the first time that you really had a miss. Like I miss not just the stage, but I miss the reaction. I miss the laughing response. I miss it. And you know, now I've been working out. I'm getting back out there trying to put another hour together. And there's a real like new energy that I have. There's a new piece of excitement of touching the stage and grabbing the microphone.
Yeah.
I found like some real good energy about it, and you know, hype to go back the next day, hype to try to get back on and figure it out again. It's like it's refreshing.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing, and you know, I understand what you're saying. Where you're like, you know, you just feel good, you feel different. There's a good piece of energy from you to that thing. Like it's not one that is that's gotten old or that we're getting jaded with.
Right.
I'm really pumped up. I'm really pumped up about the future of comedy after pandemic and people just getting back out there, because I think the one thing that we all need to do is laugh.
Right.
We need to laugh. You are also an author.
Yes.
You wrote some books. I believe you got 2 books. How many books did you write?
I just have 2 books. I write, like, you know, it's so weird because, like, I have a fractured relationship with writing. Like, I go back and do it, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. Like, I feel like so, like, it's so focused to, like, sit and write a book. It's hard for me to do that nowadays. Like, now I'm like, I just want to be writing stand-up comedy. Although, you know, I think that being an author, it's like something that I don't know why I've sort of lost the fervor for, but I'll get it back at some point, I guess. It's a nice way to like be old, I think, and like write books.
What was the names? What was the names of your books?
I wrote a book called I'm the One That I Want, which is really a story about television and working in TV and having the first Asian American TV show. And the other book is called I've Chosen to Stay and Fight, which is really a book about politics in the early 2000s, which is very fraught with a lot of controversy and, you know, sort of the beginning of the division of right and left in this country. So it's you know, it's something that I really am proud of to have done, but haven't gone back to writing books.
You know, I'm getting more into it. Like I'm on book number 3 now. I'm about to release, and you know what I did was I went from the place of like hardcover, and I'm now doing the Audible originals, right? Because
that's great.
It's writing, but then also you're acting out the thing that you're doing.
That's great.
And it puts another little piece of energy into it too for you, right? Like when you get to tell the story and you get to put the emphasis on the words and the chapters, etc. Like you get to pick a feeling and pick a mode to stay in. So I'm in this space of motivation and inspiration within literature. That's cool. I feel like that's my off season. On season is comedy. Off season, inspiration, motivation, and uplifting. That's what I'm trying to do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think that's really important. I mean, it's like kind of, for me, I was really into doing podcasting. So I was doing a podcast that this past season we did the history of hate crimes against Asian Americans from 1849 to present day. And so that was sort of more of a kind of in-depth look at history that had little to do with sort of like my comedic writings and more of my sort of historian side. So that was really gratifying. But it's something like to do like a writing thing, a project. I love the idea of doing like an Audible version, because that to me I think is more alive.
Yeah, you should. You definitely should.
Yeah, that's cool.
I would say if you to do another one or to go into that space, you should really visit that just to see the
Yeah.
world of it. Yeah. Especially
that'd be cool.
just and like you said, just finding that new energy, finding the new thing. I think the Audible original space is just really strong.
Yeah.
Music. Like I talked to you about music, right? You
Yes,
dropped like an
yes.
album. What did you do?
I do a lot of different. I'm actually like a musician, so I've been playing the mellotron and the synthesizer during pandemic, during the lockdown. So I've been working with like really weird sounds and
Holy shit.
like it's super weird. Like I play weird instrument. Like I play the dulcimer and I play like a bunch of weird instruments. And I mean, to me, it's just like making weird sounds. And I really love people like Weird Al Yankovic or people like Flight of the Conchords that really do make legitimately beautiful music, but they're great musicians. And so to me, it's about like working out a craft, writing songs. And, you know, I have to sort of think about like what my next record will be. But to me, that's just like an old tradition of like doing everything as an entertainer. You want to be able to like do it all, like both be like an actor and a singer and a comedian and an author and, you know, all of that. But music is very important.
You get it.
Yes.
You get it. You understand. Like it's
Yes.
as a comedian, actor, entertainer, like you can check off so many boxes in the space of talent. Now you say weird instruments, but you know, I mean, I don't know what they are to call them weird. You like weird sounds. Are you choosing those because of that? Because they're odd? What attracts you to the outside instrument?
Well, so that nobody can really tell if you're bad at it because nobody's ever seen it. So, like, I have a guitar and a mandolin, and I play them both. So it's two sets of strings, two arms, and two sets of strings, and then I play them all at the same time. So it sounds. Figure out a way to tune it so it sounds at least not discordant, but it sounds good. But it's like it's such a weird thing that nobody can really tell what's happening. And I think that that's when you can like master things that are super obscure, everybody thinks you're a genius. Nobody knows it's bad.
Here's what I want to know now, right? Because now that I'm talking to you more, I'm getting a sense of, you know, you're a person that you seem to understand how to occupy your mind, right? And you give yourself things to stay busy on and at. So are you a person that's conscious of your mind, of your mental? Like, do you take time just for you to step away from everything?
Yes. Well, I've done so many drugs that I have to rebuild some of my cortex.
Okay.
Like I have to like rebuild like my brain functions because I did so much damage in the early part of my life that I
Okay.
have to like go back and try to connect the synapses, like tie them together like tin cans together with thread, like just to make sure that they're connected. I'm trying not to get like you know, any sort of like very bad sort of brain disorders by trying to tie things back together. So I did enough damage trying to rebuild.
Now, at that time, when you say so many drugs, were we talking the hard hitting drugs? Were we talking
Everything.
everything? You say it was,
Everything. I was a raver, so I did a lot of like LSD and not Molly, but actual MDA, like
Okay.
MDMA. So this is like ecstasy, like old school ecstasy.
Okay.
And I did so much drugs that like when I hear the song by D-Light, Groove is in the Heart, that part that goes boo,
Yeah.
boo,
Yeah.
I can taste that part. Like I've given myself synesthesia from all of the things I've done. So I've broken down so many barriers in my mind that it's just like, oh, this is super weird. Like it's just one giant room in my head that I've got to rebuild.
If you could put a person, who's the most famous person that you were able to do drugs with that you hold on to that moment?
Oh, gosh.
For example, smoking weed with Snoop was like that's
That's
like my thing that I held on to.
that
That's like
well, I've done that. I've had Thanksgiving with Snoop Dogg. I don't remember anything that happened, but we did. He likes to roll. He's a very, he loves to roll a blunt. And then that's why
Yeah.
you get so high with Snoop, is because he will continue to roll and then take one hit and then pass it. So you're smoking the rest of the blunt, and he's just like, he's not as high because he's just smoking one hit and then passing it. So
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah.
it's quite canny the way he does it, because he's a manic roller.
He just keeps it going. And what I found where I had to tap out, I mean, there was like, he had like 5 blunts just being passed at the same time. And I was like, well, there's no way that I'm making it out of here. I need to just get out of this circle, because this is just too much. At this point, I can't. And he can function. He can function and be okay. Like there is no down for him.
Right. I've been high with him, Cypress Hill, and Cheech and Chong, all
That's
in
a big one.
the same, smoking the same time, all at the same time.
That's a big one.
That's
That's a big one.
That's pretty high.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Cheech and Chong is pretty dope. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, they're great.
You know what? I worked with Woody Harrelson. We just did a movie together. I should have smoked with Woody just to say I smoked with Woody.
Yeah, that would have been great. I mean, he's legendary. Yeah, for sure.
But back in the day, like, at that time when Pryor and all of them were around, you never got to be in the circle and go, oh my God, look at this. This is crazy. I'm doing drugs with some of the craziest names in the business, and I'm just in a room, being aware, being conscious, and just putting yourself in a space to be responsible. Like, okay,
Absolutely.
I know I do this, but I don't need to do it with the volume that I've done in the past. I'm going to take it away,
Right.
remove it. Like, I think that's good. And is it alcohol too, or is it just the drugs?
Yeah, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't
for
do
you.
anything. Yeah, I just have a lot of cats.
Good for you. How many cats?
I
do you
have 3 cats and 1 dog.
3
who
cats?
looks like a cat. So that I have a lot of animals. I'm all like scooping shit all the time.
3 cats, 1 dog. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. I've learned so much about you in this period of time, and I like
Yeah.
it. I like what
Yeah.
I've learned. And you know what, man? What I really respect is people that are okay in their truth, right? Like, you talking about your past and saying, yeah, I did drugs and I was on it, but I'm clean now. Like, I love people that can speak, on their flaws or not. Like, it's just, that's what makes the podcast really good, because it's about really getting an understanding and education on the person that I'm talking to in a way that I would never have an opportunity for. So I hope my listeners feel the same way, man. You're a very not only very nice woman, but you're just dope within your approach to life. Like, I like you talking about music. I like you saying the comedy, and I like you talking about being an author, like, and now an actor. Like, I just like you checking all these boxes and really taking advantage of the world of opportunity. It's really dope.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Listen, Margaret, this is Comedy Gold Mines. And like I said, we get inside the minds of brilliant comedians. And oh my God, what an amazing mind you were. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, get educated on Margaret. Also, Margaret, tell them the books. I know that they've been out, but tell them. Now people may want to go out and get them. Read a little bit about them. What's the names of them again?
That's I'm the one that I want, and I've chosen to stay and fight.
And what about albums? Can they get in the albums?
I have an album called Cho Dependent and an album called American Myth. Those are my music records. And I have a million comedy records, million specials. I got to do a new one, so we got to figure that out.
What do you think? If you had to do a
I'd
new
love to.
one, when do you think you would do it?
Hopefully by the end of this year, which is coming up actually. So next couple of months, hopefully, or the next year early. We'll see.
I love it. Well, let's get one out. Let's get
do
one
it.
out. The world needs
love
some
it.
more Margaret Cho.
I love it.
Thank you so much, Margaret. This was long overdue, and I really do
great.
mean it when I say I appreciate you. This was dope.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Comedy Gold Mines is a Sirius XM and LOL audio production. Executive produced by Kevin Hart, Ty Randolph, and Eric Weil. With Tastemakers Media, Emil Garner, and Ian McDonald.